To prevent his father from starving, the boy would collect animal corpses on his way home from school every day. As soon as he arrived home, he would cut the flesh into large pieces and put them on a plate. Then, he would take the meat to a dimly lit room and carefully place it on the ground before quickly backing away. Soon, his father would crawl out of the corner and start devouring the raw meat from the plate. After he was full, the father would crawl back into the corner. However, the boy couldn't leave right away because his younger brother was waiting to eat the leftovers. But every time they finished their meal, the father would become extremely angry. The boy knew that his father's favorite food wasn't animal corpses, but rather living human beings. So, he had to lock both of them in the room to prevent them from hurting others. The reason why the father and brother became like this goes back a few weeks ago. One day, the father went into a mine and was about to start his day's work with his colleagues when they suddenly heard a strange roar. Although they were scared, they searched for the source of the noise. However, they saw a terrifying monster.
Fuck out of here. Frank!
Aiden, the younger son who was waiting outside, didn't see his father come out. So, he also entered the mine. Fortunately, both he and his father returned home safely. However, after that day, the father was infected with a strange disease. He started spitting out black blood and his behavior became increasingly bizarre. He kept in the house, as far away from the two children as possible, even putting 2 locks on the door and handing the key to older brother Lucas. He instructed Lucas not to open the door under any circumstances. However, not long after that, Lucas discovered that Aiden was also infected with the same disease. He had no choice but to open the door, only to find that his father had completely changed. When learned that Aiden was infected, the father dragged him inside. Faced with the successive incidents involving his father and brother, Lucas could only stand at the door and make helpless cries. What's even more terrifying is that Lucas realized that they had no appetite for ordinary food. They only craved bloody raw meat. So during the day, Lucas would be in school, but on his way back home, he would find ways to obtain raw meat. Sometimes it was a stray dog that died on the roadside, and when he couldn't find any, he would hurt some small animals. However, the father and brother's appetite was too big, and they would get hungry again soon after finishing their meal. Lucas could only give his brother some snacks to make do, but as soon as he ate a few bites, he would start vomiting black blood uncontrollably. Lucas knew that the reason his father locked him inside was because they craved human flesh. He became very withdrawn and was frequently bullied by a school bully. Julia, his teacher, noticed Lucas' strange behavior and became concerned when she couldn't reach his family. She saw his dark drawings and knew something was wrong. She decided to conduct a home visit but just outside the house but was immediately put off by the eerie appearance of the house and strange noises coming from inside. She reported her concerns to the school principal. The principal, upon seeing Lucas' drawings, was horrified and decided to conduct a home visit herself. She was braver than Julia. It also cost her her life. She had smelled a foul odor and heard a child's voice coming from inside. Without hesitation, she unlocked the door, and the blood-stained walls did not stop her from walking up to the attic. The school principal was shocked to see the small boy crouched on the ground, covered in bruises. She assumed he had been abused by his father. Unbeknownst to her, father, who was already hungry, was right behind the principal and, faced with a delicious treat on his doorstep, he could no longer restrain his desire and pinned the principal to the ground and gobbled him up. And the father, who had eaten a human being, his whole body began to change, and an antler emerged from his mouth, as if something was about to burst out of his body. Meanwhile, Lucas was on his way home from school, intending to bring some raw meat for his family. He was stopped by the school bully, who often bullied him. Lucas doesn't want to tangle with the school bully, but he turns around and is just about to leave when he hears a horrible shriek, and they look up to see a monster appearing in the trees. The school bully was tackled directly by the monster on the spot. When Lucas looked back at the creature, he suddenly thought of something and rushed home. Just walked to the doorstep of the house, only to find a strange car parked outside. A bad feeling came over him instantly. He discovered a disfigured body on the attic floor and realized the monster he just met outside could very well be his father. Lucas remained calm and covered up the car and cleaned the bloodstains. The police soon paid a visit to Lucas' Homer family, then chose to call the police. Julia, who knew that the principal had visited Lucas, provided a lead to her brother Paul, a seasoned investigator. However, Lucas refused to open the door when the police arrived. So, They waited until the next day when he went to school to sneak into his home. The investigation revealed the expected gruesome scene. Unattended bodies were discovered in the attic, including Lucas' father, whose body had something emerging from it. Later that night, the police found the body of the school bully near the railway tracks. The manner of death appeared to be the same as the other victims, with bite marks resembling those of a wild animal. However, forensic examination revealed human bite marks on the body. Paul, who had been in the profession for many years, had never encountered such a bizarre case before. They turned to a retired investigator, Warren, for help. Based on the clues they provided, Warren immediately thought of an ancient legend, the Wendigo, a demonic creature that arose from cannibalism. According to the legend, during a harsh winter, the hunter began to eat his own kind because of hunger. After consuming human flesh, the hunter became insane and perpetually hungry. The more he ate, the hungrier he became, and he was forced to hunt endlessly for prey until he transformed into the demonic Wendigo. The only way to defeat the Wendigo was to destroy its heart when it was at its weakest, forcing it to leave the host. Despite his skepticism towards superstition, Paul decided to interview Lucas to find a breakthrough. Julia brought Lucas to Paul's house. There, the boy spoke words that sent shivers down Chi's spines.
Your dad died.
He's not dead.
Yeah, he is, Lucas. My brother Paul. He found him in your house.
No. That was my old dad. When he was sick and mean. My new dad is with Aiden. He'll come for me and take me to the mine to be with Aiden.
Suddenly, a strange noise outside interrupted their conversation.
He's here.
The police officer on patrol heard the same sound and reported it to Paul. Police all followed the sound, but, not surprisingly, the surprise came immediately. Not far away, in the warehouse, inside, the officer discovered Aiden hiding in a wooden crate, unaware that it was a trap set by the Wendigo. The creature killed the officer on the spot. By the time Paul arrived back from the police station, it was too late. Aiden was still in the crate, and the Wendigo attacked Paul from behind as he tried to rescue him. The wounded Paul managed to get to his feet, only to find that the pistol had disappeared, and before he could react, he was attacked again by Wendigo. Paul picked up a tool from the ground to fight back, but it was no use. The Wendigo continued to attack until Paul lost consciousness. The creature even added a final blow before leaving, and Lucas in the house saw the scene and knew that his father had come to pick him up. Rushed out of the house, Julia chased after him, but she couldn't find him or the Wendigo. Luckily, Paul survived the attack. Julia speculated that the Wendigo must have taken Lucas to the mine, but fearing for Lucas' safety and with her brother seriously injured, Julia had to go in alone to check on the situation. As expected, Lucas and Aiden were in the mine, and their father was nearby, but he had completely transformed into the Wendigo. Julia pulls the trigger in panic, but the creature knocked her down with one punch. Her weapon fell to the ground, and she quickly picked it up, but the Wendigo had disappeared. Julia could only fire randomly in all directions, unaware that the Wendigo was already behind her. Just as the creature was about to attack, at the critical moment, Julia touches a flare on the ground and used its blinding light to temporarily repel the creature. Julia then grabbed a metal rod from the ground and placed the flare on the ground. The final blow drove the iron rod directly into its chest, but this had no effect on the powerful Wendigo. But the Wendigo would never have imagined that the dutiful son would stab it in the back to save his teacher. Julia followed Warren's instructions and opened the Wendigo's body, removing its still beating heart. They thought everything was over, but then a sudden roar threw them into a great panic, and Aiden's mutation suddenly worsened. As Warren had warned, removing the heart only temporarily expelled the Wendigo from the host's body, but doesn't kill it outright, and those infected with the virus were like ticking time bombs. If they broke the taboo of cannibalism, they would inevitably transform into new Wendigos. Julia had no choice but to ask Lucas to turn around and send his brother away in advance. However, the end of the movie tells us that the story did not end there, because Paul, who had been attacked by the Wendigo, also showed the same symptoms.